Preheat the oven.
What?
You need to preheat the oven. It's 5:30.
Okay, Russ, you ready to get started?
I'm sorry, say it again.
Are you ready to get started?
I am. Yes, I'm ready to start. Let me start the recording.
Recording in progress.
Okay, we're ready to go.
Thanks, Russ. I'm John Morrissey, Vice Chair of the Kitsap Public Facilities District, filling in for our Chair, Pat Hatchell, who had surgery this week, but is still in attendance. So I am filling in his shoes today. And at 5:31, we'll officially call this meeting to order. First on tonight's agenda is public comment. If you wish to ask a question to the board or anyone on the panel here, you have the opportunity to have 3 minutes to address the room, the virtual room, if you will. If you would use the raise your hand option, and Russ, or put a message in the chat box, Russ will get you in front of the group. Let's see, there's a hand.
Okay.
Hank.
Okay. Okay, Hank, can you hear us?
Yes, and you can hear me now?
We sure
Yeah.
can.
Okay, good. I have a question I'd like you to ask the team that's presenting the Port Orchard Community Event Center report tonight. I would like to know how controversial it has been that the design includes shared restrooms.
Okay.
Otherwise, you all carry on.
All right. Thank you, Hank.
Thank you.
Hank, as a member of that steering committee, I don't even know that I paid that close attention that it had a shared restroom. But I guess we will bring that to the attention to those when they come and give their presentation. Thank you, Hank. Anybody else for public comment today? Raise your hand or put a message in chat.
Yeah, Vice Chair, it looks like Hank has it looks like he lowered his hand. Okay. I do not see any other raised hands.
Going once, going twice. And that has passed. So next up, consent agenda.
And can we ask for a motion?
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, or Vice Chairman, I move approval of the consent agenda.
So I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second.
I have a second from Phil. Thank you, Walt and Phil. Let's go straight into discussion. Anybody have any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, we'll call for the question. All those in favor of adopting the consent agenda as presented, say aye.
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 All those opposed, say nay. And the consent agenda carries unanimously. Thank you. Next up is new business. New business A, Resolution 5-2022, Kitsap Public Facilities District in Kitsap County on the 2021 B bond refunding. The resolution is in the board packet.
Okay. And what I'd like to do is I've asked Lee Marquiso from Foster Garvey to join us and promoted him to a panelist. And I believe that we also have Mr. Lawler with us, our legal counsel, who's also a panelist. And Lee has been leading this charge as of late for Foster Garvey. So Lee, I'm going to let you speak to the first one, Resolution 05-2022 for our 2021 B bond refunding.
Great. Thank you, Russ, and members of the board. Lee Marquisio on behalf of the Foster Garvey Law Firm. We serve as bond counsel to the PFD Special Counsel, and then prepared this amending this resolution that provides for the amendment of the interlocal agreement with the county, as Russ just mentioned. So it's, as you'll see, it's a fairly straightforward amendment and resolution, and the resolution recites that the amendment is necessary to extend the sales tax of the PFD through the period authorized recently by the state legislature. And the attachment, which is the form of amendment to the interlocal agreement with the county, captures what that small little change is, which is an amendment to the definition of the term sales tax. And that is on the very last page. And it just provides that the sales tax now shall expire not later than September 1 of 2041 instead of September 1 of 2026. So this resolution authorizes the extension of the sales tax if the county agrees to the same amendment to the ILA. And after that is accomplished, then the PFD and the county can work on a refinancing of the county's outstanding debt in order to extend the sales tax as well.
Okay, so
I have a question. So the county commissioners, after we take this action, they need to take a similar action to approve what we're trying to do. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yes, and Treasurer Draper, in speaking with the county, they said that it's traditional that we take our action first and then it's presented to the county commissioners for their action second.
Thank you.
So now
we ready for a motion?
We are ready for a motion.
Just want to see if there's any other questions for Lee before we move on there. Thank you, Lee. Walt?
In that case, I would move approval of Resolution 05-2022, the Kitsap Public Facilities District and Kitsap County 2021B bond refunding.
So we have said motion from Walt.
I'll second.
A second from Phil. Sorry, somebody was here behind him, but he came first through on my side. And just for a point of order, before we move forward, Russ, I do see new business for B. The amendment goes along with the ILA. Is this all one motion, or do you need it in two?
No, this would be an individual motion for this, because when we get into the second one, it has to do with the Kitsap County project.
Okay.
And extending the Port Gamble Heritage Park project ILA to 2023.
Thank you. Any discussion around the resolution? I think literally the only part I saw different was the one strike through from 2026 to 2041.
And right, and that the reason why it's left that way is that it shows an indication here that it talks about the addition of what's double underlined and what's struck through. And that's the only reason why it shows up there.
Yep. Okay, hearing no additional questions, we'll call for the question. All those in favor of adopting Resolution 5-2022, say aye.
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 All those opposed, nay. And the motion carries unanimously. Thank you. New business for B, amendment to the KPFD and Kitsap County ILA adoption requirement. Before we take any movement on that, Russ, you want to set this up?
Yes, so this is a second amendment to the ILA that we have with the county, and specifically with regard to their project, the Port Gamble Heritage Park project. And so this amendment changes the deliverables from 2022 to 2023. So those that were changed are highlighted in yellow just for the board's reference. And then the other change was for the district on the previous ILA, it had my predecessor as the executive director. It now lists me as the executive director. And on the terms of agreement, you can now see that it will go until December 31st, 2023. There's no other modifications as far as dollars amounts are concerned with this ILA amendment. If we were to do that, that would require a third amendment to the ILA. So this amendment only addresses extending the project out through the end of 2023.
And so, Russ, the purpose of this is really for some cosmetic improvements and to acknowledge that the project is stretched out a little bit.
Yes, and the reason why was that when the Kitsap Environmental Coalition went to the county and asked if a SEPA had been done and it had not been done, the county is required to do a SEPA. So the county is now in the process of doing that before they could continue to move forward. So they were going to need the extra time to be able to do that. And if you all recall at our last board meeting, when this project update was provided for us, at that time, they asked for an extension through 2023. And the board had given me the direction to work with the county to create an amendment to the ILA to extend it, in fact, to 2023.
Thank you.
If I recall, this is the second such for this project.
That's correct.
And just to, I just want to make sure, because I think we want to make sure that we're fair to each one of our projects. Each one has now come for one extension. This is the first one to come back for a second extension.
So in this particular case with the county, if you remember a few months ago, the county, and as a matter of fact, they spoke about it at their last update too. They had said that they were going to need an additional $350,000. They actually need an additional $700,000, but they were going to be able to match half of that at $350,000. So this amendment doesn't talk to that. But if we do another amendment, then at some point we're going to have to take a vote on whether or not we want to add an additional $350,000 to this project.
Agreed. And I, that's separate from my question. I just want to make sure that if we're giving one project a little extra time, that we make sure that we keep that in the back of our minds when the rest of them come.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. It's only fair.
Yeah. And I think we've given each of the three an additional due to COVID related closures and whatnot that we gave one extension to. So
that's correct.
Just trying to make sure that we keep it on record and exactly where we're at on one extension.
Mr. Lawler, did you have anything else to add?
No, I didn't. We drafted this document using kind of our standard template. The county reviewed it. They had a couple nits, but nothing substantive changed as you've represented. And John, to your point, yes, we have extended ILA terms for each one of the projects as they've come forward and asked for extensions.
Any additional questions around this amendment to our Port Gamble project? Okay, I think I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve the second amendment on the ILA between public facilities and Kitsap County.
I have a motion from Aaron to accept the amendment of the presented ILA. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a second from Phil. Any additional questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor of the amendment, say aye.
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 All those opposed, nay. The ayes carry it unanimously. Thank you. New business 4C, 2023 Budget Committee. Our Fair Treasurer, Walt. Mr. Drake.
Thank you. Mr. Vice Chairman. Russ and I have talked a little bit about the budget preparation and approval process. And hopefully in the interest of getting the board a little bit more involved in budget details and being very transparent to the public, we would like to for the board to work with Russ and with me in the form of a subcommittee, myself, and hopefully 2 volunteers from the remainder of the board to go over budget proposals and budget possibilities sometime between now and our next meeting in December, so that when it's brought before the board for final approval at the December 12th meeting, it won't be, the board rubber stamping something that Russ has prepared, that we will have been more involved in preparation of the various budget items. So I would like to do that as your treasurer, if I could get a couple of volunteers, and then we'll meet sometime. It should only take 1 meeting, but I think the board as a whole then will have a little bit better understanding of the details of the upcoming budget for 2023.
And if I could add, Vice Chairman, I've already created the 2022 budget through the end of September. I will extend that through the end of October, so we have an opportunity to look at our actuals compared to what our budget was at the beginning of the year. And so when we get together as a committee, then we'll be able to take a look at all of our expenditures to date, projected on what I see us spending in November and December, to get a more realistic projection of what 2023 would look like. So a lot of the legwork has already been done.
So this subcommittee of the board, myself and 2 others, would be very comfortable with the proposed 2023 budget before we bring it before the entire board and before the public.
Okay. So the question is, who would like to volunteer to be?
I would like to volunteer.
Okay, Tom, that's loud and clear.
Thank you, Tom.
I'll volunteer also.
And thank you, Aaron.
Anybody else would like to throw their name in the hat?
Well, I don't think we can have more than 3.
Can't, but that's why I just want to make sure everybody had their opportunity. So we'll have to choose if anybody wanted to throw their name in the hat. They felt inclined. Hearing none, I think that makes our job pretty easy. We can have 3 spots. We have 3 people on the slate for this ad hoc committee between Tom and Aaron.
Tom and Aaron, I'll get together with Russ and get a hold of you guys, and we'll agree on something that mutually fits our schedules in the next few weeks.
Perfect. Excellent. I love when a good plan comes together.
Yep. Thanks, Director Bullock, and thanks, Director Leadham, for volunteering as well.
Yes. Excellent. Excellent. And that takes care of that new business. I don't think we need an official motion there. Next up is 4D, KPFD retirement plan options. And I know the executive committee had a meeting with Executive Director Shiplet, and we've asked him to provide a short presentation to the entire board here this evening.
Thank you, Vice Chair Morrissey. So I looked into it. Actually, it was Chairman Hatchell who told me that he thought that as an employee of Kitsap Public Facilities District, that we are eligible for PERS, or Public Employees Retirement System. So he told me to look into that, and so I did with Washington State Department of Retirement Systems. And in fact, we do qualify as an employer. I can qualify as an employee to be a part of that. So looking into that, took a look at some options that I wanted to present to the board as directed by the executive team. So there are 2 different PERS plans that we are currently eligible for. There's PERS 2 and PERS 3. And again, PERS is Public Employees Retirement System. In PERS 2 plan, the employee contribution, in other words, my contribution would be 6.39% of my annual gross. That would actually be taken out on a monthly basis. The employer contribution is 10.39% of the annual gross. Now, of course, both of those are subject to change each year, but as of 2022, that's where it currently sits. It's July, the end of June, so June 30th, 2023 is when they would reevaluate to see if those percentages would go up or down. The estimated monthly employer contribution would be $1,082.29, and that's based upon 10.39% of my $10,417 monthly gross. The annual contribution by the employer would be $12,987.50, so just shy of $13,000. Of note, the employer no longer pays the employee's Social Security benefit. And as of this year, at the end of this year, that will be just over $8,000 that was paid into my Social Security benefit. Now, PERS 3 gives myself, as the employee, an opportunity to contribute as little as 5%, but as much as 15% of my annual gross, whatever it is that I feel I can afford to do. The employer contribution remains at 10.39% of my annual gross, and then the same employee calculations as above. Now, with either PERS 2 or PERS 3, it is a permanent, no opt-out option, which means that if the Public Facilities District votes to do this, then that means that we cannot later on say, well, we can't afford to do it and no longer do it. We're looking at this not only for the perspective of me as executive director, but future executive directors as well. And now that we've gotten to the point to where we have our bonding extended to 2041, and we know that we're going to be in business, so to speak, for a long period of time. You know, I think it's worth looking into, and I really do appreciate Chairman Hatchell and the executive team encouraging me to take a look at this. Now, option 2 would be that if we didn't do that path at all, that in option 2, they have what's called a deferred compensation program. In that program, I can contribute as little as $300 or $30 a month, as much as $2,000 per month in the DCP. And then the PFD's annual contribution would be $7,500. And that is based upon the current annual retirement stipend that I receive at the end of at my anniversary date, which would be December 1st of this year. So there's the options for us. It's certainly open for discussion. I can answer any other questions you've got. I've been back and forth with Washington Department of Retirement Systems on all of these different options so forth. So I feel like I'm pretty well versed on it, but let me answer any questions that you may all have. And let me also say that I'm just presenting this right now. It doesn't mean that we have to make a motion on it tonight. But I did tell the executive team that I report out on it at this board meeting.
And before I open it up to the rest of the group, I just would like to share that, on behalf of the executive team, we thank Russ because he very much is coming at this on a what's best for the Public Facilities District as opposed to what's best for Rush. So I appreciate it. I don't know that we'd always get that from everyone else. So our thanks to you. So let's open that up to the floor for questions. I think before I do that, I'm going to ask my one question quick, Russ. Between PERS 1 or PERS 2 and PERS 3, if we choose to go through with that, are we just in the PERS program, or are we stuck to each one of those plans into perpetuity?
Whichever one we go into, that's the one that we're stuck into.
Okay.
If we sign up for PERS 2, then we stay with PERS 2.
Okay. Thank you.
Right.
Director Leadham.
I'm not really very familiar with PERS. So when you were saying that we don't pay the Social Security match, then that you don't pay the Social Security match either, and your input to Social Security stops, and this PERS program starts instead.
That's correct.
So long-term then, in terms of when you are allowed to retire, does that affect the earnings that you had in Social Security?
It does not, and that was one of the questions that I asked them, is if the employer was no longer paying into my Social Security, does that hurt my Social Security? And it does not.
And that's true on both version 2 and plan 2 and plan 3.
That's absolutely correct. Really, the only difference between PERS 2 and PERS 3 is my option to contribute more if I wanted to than the 6.39%.
And the deferred compensation, that's outside of PERS?
So deferred compensation, I could do that without having any employee contribution at all. I mean, without any employer contribution at all. So if the board decided that they didn't want to do PERS 2 or PERS 3, then the second option would be, okay, would you be all right if I took my stipend that you give me and put it to the DCP instead? So basically it's saying, you know, you're already giving me this. This is what I would like to put it into. Even if we did PERS 2 or PERS 3, the board decided to do that, I would probably still do the deferred compensation program myself anyway, because it'd just be I'd be investing on myself like I would PERS 2 and 3. So it's just an additional. It's a DCP is more of a savings than it is anything.
So is it an outside? It's not through PERS?
I'm sorry, say again.
Is the deferred compensation, it's not through PERS, it's another kind of program totally?
Right, exactly. Right. It's not included as PERS 2 and PERS 3. It's something completely separate.
Yeah, but it's still run through the state though.
Oh, yes, it is.
Oh, so if we choose the deferred compensation, that's the road we're on, period? We can't change from that one either?
No, because since it's a separate program, and Chairman Hatch will correct me if I'm wrong, but since it's a separate program, at any time you could then later on for another executive director or later on for myself say, okay, well, we've been doing this, but now we'd like to go into PERS. So it doesn't lock you into DCP and then give you the option of not going into PERS 2 or PERS 3.
Right. I believe you're correct. So one thing,
Russ.
Oh.
Yes.
Russ, if we elect to go with either PERS 2 or PERS 3, and that relieves us of the responsibility of paying the employer's part of the Social Security contribution, do you still have the option of paying both ends of Social Security like a self-employed person might do to maintain your Social Security?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
no, you would not be able to.
Oh, I cannot?
I'm under the state plan.
Okay.
So as long as you have your 40 quarters or 10 years of Social Security substantial earnings, you'll get Social Security even with the state plan. If somebody never got 10 years of Social Security earnings, they wouldn't get any Social Security if they were on this plan for their whole career.
Okay.
So another thing when I noticed this is we're the only PFD I could find that wasn't on PERS for their employees. We were unique among all the PFDs I looked at.
And I think that's probably because we're the only PFD that only has one employee too.
Right, and I thought since we aren't like the other PFDs, that could be the reason why.
Any other questions for Russ around?
I would like to know if Russ has a preference.
I kind of knew that question was going to come up. I think my preference would be PERS 2 plan. That way I know the amount that would be going in for my contribution, and as it changes, I would know what it would change to. It's a little more consistent with regard to me knowing what basically what would be coming out of my paycheck and what it is that we would be paying. The other thing about PERS 2 or PERS 3 is that with with the PFD no longer paying my Social Security benefit, the actual annual employee contribution would amount to about $4,939 as opposed to the $7,500 if we put into deferred compensation program for me. So I didn't do the math there, but they over the course of the year, at current, what's paid into Social Security would be over $8,000. I think it's $8,042. And then at the end of the year would be the $7,500 stipend. So this really actually saves the PFD. But if you look about it long term, once you're in, you're in. So my preference would be PERS Plan 2. I have the option. I will probably go ahead and sign up for the deferred compensation program myself, but I wouldn't ask the PFD to contribute to that. I would be the one contributing to that.
Say, Russ.
Yes.
Would there be a reason why we wouldn't pick PERS 3 and just set your employee contribution at the 6.39? Because when I look at the two, that's the only difference from my perspective here is it's a set employee contribution versus you are able to choose that in PERS 3? Or am I reading that wrong?
No, that's exactly right. And if we went PERS 3, I could say, okay, well, instead of 6.39, make mine 7%, or make mine 8%, right? Yeah, the 10.39 is still going to come out of the PFD one way or the other.
So, long term for PFD, say we get a new, there will be a time where you won't want to be here. That's
an excellent point. That gives them the opportunity to say, well, I don't want to pay as much as 6.39. I want to go down to 5%, say, yes.
And team, well, I know he's not slated to present on this. I would venture to guess he's got some experience behind PERS. Would it be okay? I see that Mayor Putaansuu has his hand raised. Would anybody object to him having input?
No, and he's a panelist, so Mayor, you should be able to speak.
He can. I just want to make sure it's okay with everybody before I allow him. Okay.
Subtle differences between 2 and 3. And Pat probably knows. 2 is a fixed benefit, where 3 is more of an IRA type, where you're paying into it. And I believe you get to pick as the employee. But I'm not 100% certain on that. But I believe they all both have a 5-year vesting period.
That is correct, Mayor. It is a 5-year vested period, correct?
Yeah. So I just wanted to.
Which basically means the PFD stuck with me for 5 years.
Yeah. So, Mayor, what's your thoughts? I'm a left member, so I don't do PERS. Do the employees like the PERS too?
It's personal preference. I chose 2 because it's a fixed benefit, and fortunately, I got a second term. Otherwise, I wasn't going to get your 1 4-year term doesn't get you anything. But
right,
you got to get five years of elected service to get. But an employee is a little different. So it's personal preference, really.
Yeah. When I looked at this, defined benefit plans are very difficult to come by nowadays. Mm-hmm. And it's one of the advantages of government work is a good retirement plan. And I think it'll attract people in the long run. And I'm assuming they're probably going to extend the PFD beyond 2041 eventually, and this could be something that's a good recruitment tool through the ages here.
The longer Russ sticks around, if he takes 2, the more he gets.
Yes.
Thank you. Director Leadham?
Oh, yeah. So looking at that, Russ, then, and now that I understand that 2 is a fixed benefit plan, is that part of your thinking about why you liked PERS 2 versus PERS 3? It's not so much the ability to change your, my dinner was just served to me. Thank you. Was that part of your thought pattern too? Because I can totally understand wanting a fixed benefit.
I can barely hear you, Director Leadham. Could you speak up just a bit?
Sorry. Was that part of your thought pattern on liking the PERS too? Was that it was a fixed benefit?
Correct.
So,
Are we ready for a motion?
do we feel like we have a consensus that we want to move forward with one? Does everybody feel like they have enough information to make a decision this evening?
I do.
Yes,
Yes.
I do also.
All right, well then I guess we're ready for a motion.
I would move that we adopt the PERS 2 retirement plan for our executive director position.
So I have a motion from Director Draper on adoption of entering the PERS 2 plan with the state of Washington for our retirement benefit for employees of the Public Facilities District. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
I have a second from Director Hatchell. Any further discussion?
I'm just curious if it would make sense to word it, not necessarily for the executive director, but for any KPFD employee, just in the event that we ever do have additional headcount.
I'm not sure about this, but I was under the impression that all of our employees will be PERS 2 from now on, no matter how many we get.
Correct.
Once you're in the system, you're in the system.
That is correct. And I think what Director Bullock was saying is that the motion itself was made for the executive director and
Okay.
amended to say employees of the Kitsap Public Facilities District. Is that correct, Director Bullock?
Yes, it is.
I'm good with that amendment.
So noted. Any additional discussion? Let's call for the question. All those in favor of adopting PERS 2 for the district, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. And the motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Next up is item number 5 on the agenda, and I know he's already here. Facility progress report, and this month we have our Port Orchard Community Events Center. Mayor Putaansuu, I believe you are going to lead the charge this evening.
I'm part of the show. The important person needs to be elevated is Dean Kelly.
I'm sorry, and let me do that right now, Mr. Mayor.
And he might have a staff.
Could I interrupt real briefly? I apologize, but for personal reasons, I need to excuse myself from the rest of the meeting.
Thank you,
Director Bullock.
Thank you.
Mr. Kelly, you should be a panelist now. And did you have any other employees that you needed me to promote up as well?
Yes, I have Leah Delaney should be also here.
Okay. And Ms. Delaney, you have been promoted to panelist, and any others?
That should be it for us.
But Dean, it looks like they've already got your slide deck up, and I'll let you. And so Dean and Leah are from Rice Fergus Miller and the design team that is helping us build this or design at this point and eventually build this beautiful facility. So I will let Dean and Leah take it away, and then I've got some closing remarks.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. And we can go through the presentation too. We did have a video walkthrough that we were hoping to share with the board tonight. So we can share our screen to go through that, or if you're able to pull it up, kind of whatever works.
What I'll do, Mr. Kelly, is you have the ability to be able to share your screen as well. So
perfect.
You can either take it over or let me know if you want me to progress through these slides, and I can do that.
It'll probably be smoother if I just go ahead and share my screen right now, and then I can kind of drive that. Let's see.
I'll stop sharing mine, and now you can share yours.
Is everybody seeing my screen now?
Yes, we're good.
Okay. All right. So thank you all for your time tonight. Dean Kelly, principal and architect at Rice Fergus Miller, and just want to give you an update on the status of the Port Orchard Community Event Center project. So this is the exterior and exterior rendering. So we're going to go through kind of the exterior look and feel of the building. It'll be pretty similar to the last update that we gave you earlier this year, but then we've done subsequently a lot more development on the interior of the building. So that's where I'll ask one of our interior designers, Leah Delaney, to jump in and go through the video walkthrough that we put together earlier this year that shows you kind of the interior spaces. So this is the main entry of the Community Event Center. You see the Port Orchard kind of there along Orchard Plaza, kind of one of the key elements, and that would be the front door just beyond that you see right there. This is a slight update from the last presentation that I brought before the board. We, at that time, were talking about the addition of a retail space on the corner here along Bay Street. So we've now incorporated that into the design. We do have that as part of our design now. So a potential revenue generating space, and also an additional way to activate that street there along Bay Street. So just wanted to kind of give that update that we have incorporated that element into the project. The last time we came, it was just a sketch. We do still have the community kind of wrapping there on this corner as well, the complement to the Port Orchard, and one of kind of the key elements of this project. So one element that I want to talk a little bit more about today is the portals. So you'll see those kind of in the subsequent renderings. We have these two portal spaces that are extensions of the KRL programming happening inside the building. So there is a portal that is for the teens, and it's an extension of the teen collection and program space, as well as a portal for the children. So that's an extension of the kids space. But this was our initial inspiration, taking some cues kind of from the local vernacular of kind of the boat sheds and the soft light that you get kind of in the morning hours here in our marine environment. So providing something, one, that could provide a little bit of pop of color and fun, but also kind of adhering to those kind of soft colors that we see. So this, we just wanted to show you kind of some of our initial inspiration. And then here, this is the teen portal along Bay Street. This is also a bit of a slight update from our previous presentation. In earlier renditions of the building, we had a portal that kind of poked out of the building straight out onto Bay Street. But this new orientation, we believe, does a couple of things for us. One, it creates kind of a protected enclosure for the teens so that they don't feel like they're on display right there on Bay Street. And it also, with this new orientation, allows us to take advantage of this space that extends out towards the main entry of the building. So we have a bit more space for that teen program to kind of spill out there onto the streetscape. So we envision this as kind of a mix of different seating types. And then you can see behind here is a operable door system. So on a nice day, they'd be able to open that space up and really have the interior and exterior flow together seamlessly. So this is colored glass that we're proposing here to kind of create this enclosure. So again, kind of providing that pop of color and an immersive experience once the teens are actually inside that space. So we see this kind of wrapping around as kind of the roof and this wall facing Bay Street, and then complementing that with a similar flooring material that really just creates that immersive experience in there for the teens. This is on the waterward side of the project. So you see kind of the waterfront trail extending out in the decks above. But this is the portal on the kids side. So again, kind of taking that idea of pulling the KRL programming for the kids and creating an indoor-outdoor experience. Another operable door system. So this could be completely opened on a nice day or closed when it needs to be. But again, kind of bringing in this case, a blue glass as opposed to the green glass that we have on the Bay Street side, but bringing that in as a wall and as a roof, and then kind of creating that same kind of immersive experience with the colored flooring that matches that as well. And then on this side, we have a lot more room to work with. So this kind of spills out into this lawn area here and ultimately into the waterfront trail. You'll see here above just further development of the exterior design and kind of the elevated walkway and deck area that will serve kind of the event space. This is another kind of update. We originally had a deck design on the project that was inspired by the piers, kind of the whole waterfront idea. but one of our piers actually extended out over this property line and onto a property that was that's controlled by the Port of Bremerton. So we looked at a couple of options to pull our deck back and change the geometry of the deck, and this was the preferred option that we landed on. So what this does is, one, it keeps the deck off of the Port of Bremerton property and kind of forgoes any complicated negotiations and leases that we may get into trying to work that out with the Port of Bremerton. But it also creates kind of a larger, more usable space that we feel will kind of really be conducive to the type of events that we see here in the center. We do still have one of the critical elements to the design, which was originally with the piers. They were creating a focal point here in the center, which is our main hardscape. You can see it here in this rendering where we envision events happening, kind of our main outdoor program area. So the decks do still kind of create a viewing area that frames that from both above and if you were somebody enjoying an event here down on the ground level. So these kind of renderings show you a bit of what that new deck geometry looks like. And this is what that new deck would look like kind of from the Port Orchard Plaza side as you're making your way around the center back here towards the program area on the water side of the project. And here are our floor plans just to talk about some of the meeting spaces. You can see the old deck design with kind of these more pier-like shapes shown here on these plans just for your reference, as opposed to the triangular design currently in the plans. But we have a series of different event spaces, primarily on the second floor, with the main program elements on the ground floor still the KRL library space. So our biggest space right here is labeled as A. This is a large banquet event space. This would be kind of the main space to go to for any kind of big conference presentation or a big formal banquet, things such of that nature. With that space and with a table configuration, we can seat anywhere from 108 to 130 people. So this would be the biggest space that we have available within the event program of the building. This space can also be subdivided here down the middle with an operable wall system to create these two medium-sized spaces labeled as B. So the smaller of the two over here on the left-hand side could support a table seating of up to 36 people, or a presentation setting with chairs of up to 54. On the right-hand side, the slightly larger space, we're able to accommodate up to 72 people at a banquet table setting, as well as 72 people in more of a presentation setting. One other thing to note is we have this open kind of atrium space, like a pre-function space just outside of this area. And this is another operable wall system. So we've labeled this here as open, just to indicate that for certain events, this entire space could be open from one end to the other to really kind of create that large active area. In addition to the main banquet spaces and meeting spaces, we have space number C. We think this is a great kind of boardroom space. This one could fit in a presentation setting or a conference setting anywhere between 26 to 30 people. But as we've talked more about this space, we see this more as a dedicated space where we might have a nicer kind of boardroom style table. And this could be a great location for more kind of fixed meetings. So this would maybe be the typical layout you could see in that space, with kind of a large boardroom table with chairs flanking on the sides and areas for projections on either wall. And then lastly, in terms of the dedicated meeting spaces, down this main corridor where you have access into the larger rooms, we do have these smaller breakout meeting spaces labeled as D. And these range from 170 square feet to 325 square feet, and could support, in the smaller ones, a meeting of 4 to 6 people, and in the larger one in the center, 12 to 18 people. We do still have the co-working space here at the end. And that's envisioned as kind of a bit more of a technology area where we would have plugins for various devices, things like that, more comfortable seating with some built-ins, and just an area where someone could go for a bit different kind of atmosphere. And the exact logistics of that space are being worked out of who owns and operates that, but that's the vision for that space. And then the last space that we'll mention here is labeled F, which is kind of a shared space underneath this atrium. Normally library programming would go on in this space, but it'll be a really dynamic space, and you'll see it in kind of the video walkthroughs where this could be a whole host of different activities that could happen here in this main space. This is an opening that connects the two floors to one another. It's right adjacent to kind of the main entry, and then our feature stair that takes you up from levels 1 and 2 with another opening. So kind of an area that's really dynamic, could be really connected between the two floors, and then have access to the outside as well. There was a comment earlier on regarding the restrooms, so I'm going to zoom in on this here. So this is our restroom plan, which is the same on both floors. This was presented to the City Council and has not been controversial so far. Really, this is not a shared restroom, but unisex toilet stalls. We have 4 toilet stalls on both levels, and then the sinks would actually be outside of there. So this is the shared area, but the toilet stalls themselves are all unisex and private. So that is kind of to answer the question that was brought up earlier on in the meeting. That has been our approach with the restrooms, and so far that has not been a controversial element of the project. All right, so with that, I'll turn it over to Leah, who will kind of go through some of the interior design elements and some of the concepts that got us there.
Hello. Yeah, so at the very end, we're going to do a video walkthrough, as Dean mentioned, that'll kind of show you the final design where we landed. But before we do that, we want to just kind of walk you through a little bit of the process of how we got there. So as we started thinking about this project, kind of high level aspirational goals of what it wants to look and feel like, what it wants to do for the community, we just did a little writing exercise with some guiding principles. So I'll read through these here quickly. The design explores the ideas of discovery and rediscovery. For visitors, the project should highlight all that Port Orchard has to offer, which is the discovery element. And for residents, the project should provide a lens through which to see their community in a whole new way, which is the rediscovery element. The shoreline is an integral part of the community's shared cultural heritage. However, for decades, it has been largely inaccessible to the general public. Its reclamation for recreation and public use should feel like a celebration of people and place. Just as Port Orchard's population is diverse, so too are the intended uses of this facility. Whether visiting the library, attending a formal event, or just meeting friends for a cup of coffee, the design response should feel appropriate in terms of scale and overall aesthetic. The facility should provide a variety of space typologies. One size does not fit all. Just as nature is layered and nuanced, so too is the design vocabulary employed. Nature is not static. It changes according to the time of day and the passing seasons. The interior environment will also adopt this natural cadence, transforming from day to night. So as we start to think about how kind of those high-level ideas are actually applied within the built space, we took a look at each of our floor plans for the 2 levels. Or actually, sorry, I guess we have a slide before that. Jumping the gun. So we sort of identified kind of 3 design moves that would be employed that kind of highlight these ideas that we've talked about. So the first one is portals and pop-outs. You've seen that in kind of the large scale way on the exterior of the building with the teens and the kids. We also see some kind of smaller scale ways that could happen in the interior. And we'll take a look at those when we get into the video. The second one is the idea of filtered light. Again, this is an element that happens on the exterior as well as the interior. So exterior, you've seen it with those screens that say Port Orchard and the way light kind of passes through that. And the shadow changes at different times of day. And then on the interior, you're going to see some elements where It comes into play with a skylight that casts some interesting shadows in the space. The third one is the idea of framed views. So we've got some really great views out to the water, obviously, that we want to make sure we kind of intentionally highlight. But then on the opposite side of the building, there should also be some really great views out to what will be this reinvigorated, pedestrian-friendly downtown area for Port Orchard. So both sides of the building, we want to highlight some really key views. As we started to think about kind of where are some big moments where we can tell a story, you'll see when we get to the plan that there's one really kind of obvious space for a big scale, large scale story, and then some kind of smaller elements. So this is just us starting to think about different ways that you could tell that story. None of these are the proposed solution, just kind of some examples of ways it's been done before. So here's where we started to identify kind of where those actually happen on both levels. As I mentioned, on the first level, we've got the kids and the teens pop outs. So those are identified in blue there. You can see that that's a moment where the interior and the exterior are kind of immersive in a color, as Dean showed you in the renderings earlier. In green, we're highlighting what we're kind of calling the slice through the building. So this emphasizes the connection between Bay Street and the waterfront that for a long time has been kind of cut off from one another. So emphasizing that connection with really great views out to either side. The third element up in the upper right-hand corner in purple is what we're calling the adult reading room. So this is a program for the library that is kind of a more traditional library setup with built-in floor-to-ceiling shelves. And this allows us a moment to kind of frame some views out to the water as you're kind of seeing that image there. The last one on this level is in yellow there. So this is a double height space where we've got a hole in level 2 and it goes up to a skylight above. And we're looking at having some kind of a screen element that casts some really interesting shadows. And again, this is just kind of a dynamic thing that could change as the time of day changes. If you're sitting there, you can see the shadows kind of move across the space and you can think of a playful element. On level 2, I'll start with the element that's kind of shared between both levels. So again, that yellow, the idea of the filtered light coming in through that space. In the green, again, we're highlighting those kind of strategic frame views both out to the water and to Bay Street. The purple shows the large event space where we've got this really tall wood ceilings with some beautiful views out to the water. So just really trying to emphasize those as much as possible. In the red, we've got, again, kind of thinking about framed views. So there's some moments in the co-working space and then right outside of it where we're going to kind of have some smaller scale portals. Some of them have kind of a screened element to them, which you'll see in the video walkthrough also. And then in the blue, this is where I was mentioning kind of, we have our big portals and pop outs on level 1. With the exterior element, this is kind of the small scale version of that. So each of these meeting rooms have kind of a glass element that pokes its head out into the hallway in what is otherwise a pretty neutral corridor. And it's kind of a moment of color and surprise that kind of helps lead you down there. And then the phone booths, which you'll see in the video also, are just kind of individual rooms for one person. And they also get a color move, but they're sort of the inverse. So the color is carved in versus popping out. We started to identify some opportunities for donors. So we know some of these will be library specific. So some obvious ones, the kids and the teens, those are a spot for a large donor, and also that adult reading room. We think that would be, a great place for someone to lend their name to the room. And then there's also some kind of smaller elements, such as the stair treads, and that would be a shared building donor versus KRL specific. And other lots of little places like on the site where it could be pavers or it's on a bench. So those would be kind of smaller dollar amount donor opportunities. And then up on level 2, again, small donor opportunities kind of at the stair and also potentially at the deck. We started to think about how that could be another place where we could sort of sell some smaller items, and then some large opportunities at all of the meeting rooms. As we start to think about kind of the overall material palette, you'll see here we're looking at a very neutral in most places, lots of crisp whites, kind of black metal supportive elements, really warm, natural exposed wood. As we've mentioned, I think in the previous updates, there will be an exposed CLT roof system and also blue lamp columns and beams. So really looking at ways that we can highlight those wood elements. We just think that feels really warm and inviting and kind of true to the Northwest character. But then within that, there's kind of some moments for surprise. So little color elements that are maybe in subtle ways, like the railing that you see there. You know, things that are different depending on what scale you view them at. So like that pixelated image is a good example of that, where, you know, if you're up close, it's kind of just polka dots. And then as you step back, you start to see the image reveal itself. So just kind of where are those moments where we can be a little bit playful, and it's maybe not something that you see the first time you come to the building or the second, maybe it's on the 10th time. There's all these little discoverable moments. And then as we start to think about kind of the color palette, the blue and the green you've seen expressed on the exterior of the building already at the kids and teens portals. And then kind of the third big color move is this coral color, which you'll see in the walkthrough. And these are kind of, we're thinking of these triad of colors as being kind of, the blue and green are more KRL specific. So you'll see those in the library only. And then the coral is more of the building accent color. So as you move through the building, it'll kind of direct you where to go at kind of strategic locations.
All right, and I'll hop us over to the walkthrough.
All right, so we're going to start at the outside of the building, doing a little time lapse here so you can see how the play of light and shadow happens on the exterior of the building. Walk in the front door, the exterior stair that takes you up to the deck. We go in the vestibule, and then we'll walk through the front door, and perfect. I'm going to have Dean kind of pause this for me at some strategic locations, so we'll try to coordinate as best we can. So standing just at the front door, this is kind of your first view when you walk in. We've got this large communicating stair that takes you up to level 2. We're seeing this as being wood treads. We're looking at potentially reusing some wood members from the Kitsap Bank building. We think that's just kind of a fun way to tell the story of, you know, what this site used to be and what it's becoming. Again, seeing that as an opportunity for donors to potentially have some names carved on each individual tread. There's also this kind of rope element that does a couple things. It has this similar kind of vertical language as the spots that are happening on the exterior of the building. But then it also brings in kind of this playful moment of with a nautical, a subtle nod to, you know, Port Orchard's kind of maritime history. So we're seeing those as being like a thick rope material. It could potentially even be something that's replaned and has a little bit of, you know, wear that you can see to it. Another thing to note is kind of that triad color scheme that we talked about. So in the background, you see the blue and the green, and those are the kids and the teens elements for the library. And then kind of more in the foreground in that coral color, that is the event coordinator desk. So that would be someone that could help kind of direct you where to go in the building, tell you to go upstairs for whatever event you're there for. Pause this here. So this is kind of that slice element that we were talking about. So as we came in, you could see it kind of happens on both ends. What's happening out there to the water is also mirrored on the Bay Street side. So this is an element that's expressed both interior and exterior. And then there's also this kind of great double height space that we talked about that allows the natural light in from the skylight above. And this is really our moment to tell a big story. So we've got this double height wall that extends from level 1 all the way up to level 2, and then even to kind of the pop-up area that you see on the roof. So this is a really tall, kind of dramatic moment where we see the potential for some art. So we've been working with a graphic designer who has helped us come up with this concept that is Sinclair Inlet in kind of a topographic map style. So we see this being a cutout wood element that also has some pops of color with the blue. And we're still kind of working out, like, that's the macro kind of large scale story, but we also think there's an opportunity for some kind of micro moments that are potentially like lights that come on that show the ferry route or the mosquito fleet. Or, you know, maybe there's some kind of smaller historical images superimposed on the map. So still kind of working out the details of that, but this is the overall concept for that wall. And again, you see the light kind of change as the time of day changes and moves through the space. Again, looking out to our great views of the water. And then we're going to turn here and look into that adult reading room space. So this again is kind of the more traditional library component. Everywhere else in the library is going to feel a little bit more modern, you know, with their modular shelving, but this is kind of one moment we think is really special to bring in the wood elements and frame those views out to the water. Within this kind of grid, we've broken it up and had some larger kind of display moments so that you can see where we brought in that color scheme again, just some fun little pops of color and a place for them to display any kind of historical things they might have or any number of things. Here we've got our framed view out to Bay Street. I'm going to walk up the stairs. You see that exterior screen element through the window as you climb the stairs. And if you maybe want to pause here for just a second, I can talk about this, the shared restrooms, just a little bit. So similar to the screen element that's happening at the stair, there's also a screen element into the restrooms. So this shows you, as Dean was saying, that the toilet rooms themselves are fully enclosed, floor to ceiling, fully private rooms. And then as you come out, there's just a sink, and that is, you know, the shared component of the restroom. And the screen was added on both levels, just with, you know, any security concerns that might arise. This gets that little added view in so that we know, you know, everyone is safe and there's not any undesirable activities happening in the restrooms. All right, and here we're going to walk out into this pre-function space. Again, views out to the water in that framed language. On the left, you're seeing the large event room, which we'll peek into in just a minute here. You'll see that that has some large glass doors that allow light in, but we're looking at a treatment that gives a little bit of privacy, so you see kind of movement and activity, but not specific, so you're not in a fishbowl. And then on the right side, again, you're seeing that double height wall, and then kind of past that is the board meeting room. I'm going to turn and take a peek in here. So this is one of the spaces where we really want to make sure we're highlighting these great exposed CLT wood roof system that we have. So you're seeing the columns and beams and that wood ceiling. But we do at the same time know that we're going to need to drop a little bit of acoustical material in order to make this room functional. So that's where you're seeing kind of this open grid system that has the absorptive quality, but also allows views up to the structure above. You could go out those doors and go out onto the deck. We don't in this video, but that's what happens there.
I'll just pull you back. That's the conference room that we mentioned in the floor plan earlier.
And that has a similar sort of language with the ceiling element. And then here we're going to walk down the corridor. So on the left side, you're seeing these kind of pop outs that we talked about. So those are the 3 meeting rooms. They're 2 small and 1 medium sized with the colored glass. With a peek in there. And then on the left, or on the right side, excuse me, are, I don't know that we see it very well, but basically what these are little phone booth rooms for just one person to take a quick phone call or a Zoom meeting or, whatever they need to excuse themselves from the event that they're at. It's just a little spot for them to tuck into. And that again has that kind of color move, but instead of popping out into the space, it's kind of inverse and wraps in. And then at the end of the corridor, right before we go into our co-working space, we see this kind of end of the hall as an extension of the co-working space. So there's some double doors that they could prop open and spill out into this really informal seating. We've got this framed view that we mentioned on the floor plan, and that coincides with the screen element on the exterior. So you're seeing kind of the wood slats there. And we'll head into the co-working space here. So we picture this as being a really flexible space for people to work in a variety of ways. So we've got some kind of individual workspaces in some pods off to the left. We've got some group meeting spaces in kind of the 3 booths that you see. We have a pretty generous kitchen component, which has the kitchen element on the right side, and then kind of in the middle, there's the counter seating. And again, great views out to the water, and we could head back out onto our deck out of that space as well.
There we go. Get that last view before it kicks me back.
There you go. Yep. So there's the kitchen and out onto the deck.
Thank you, Dean and Leah. We are as pleased I am with the, Dean, you have any other thoughts or comments before I jump into closing remarks? Okay.
No, take it away, Mayor.
All right. So we've now completed the design development phase of the project. And we're stopping or pausing on the design of the building at this point. I've got the janitor knocking on my door. Just a minute. I'm busy. Okay. Sorry about that. The janitor came knocking. So anyway, so where we're at is we've got a shoreline restoration project and a seawall project. And we thought that they would be independent of each other. When we evaluated this, had an engineer evaluate the seawall, we learned that the seawall is being held up by the bank building. So when we move the bank building, the seawall isn't going to stay. So we need to construct the seawall, a new seawall, and do our shoreline restoration at the same time that we construct the building. The shoreline process, the council just awarded that contract a few weeks back. So that process needs to catch up. And the shoreline design project is being solely funded by the city. You know, as you're probably, I think I've discussed this in the past, we're rebuilding Bay Street, raising it 18 inches, undergrounding power, putting in new sidewalks and treescape. We're building an Orchard Street Plaza and doing the shoreline restoration. All those projects aside of the community event center are costing more than $10 million and are being paid for by state, city, state, and federal resources. Right now, we're working on our cost estimates for the event center. Unfortunately, the economy isn't being kind to us. We're seeing construction costs increasing by 30% at this time, and projections to 2026 when we break ground aren't much better. Tomorrow evening, I'll be meeting with the city council to discuss value engineering options as well as potential terms on our cost sharing agreement with the library. We've had a verbal agreement for quite some time, and we're in a moment in time as we're talking dollars and cents that we need a formal agreement between us and the library. So once I have that formal agreement with the library, some direction from the city council, I plan to circle back with you at your December meeting to discuss options for hopefully additional funding for the event center once we're comfortable where we're at from a dollars and cents standpoint. So for that, I'll open it up for questions of myself or Dean.
Any questions for the team? Director Latham?
On the conference rooms, is there a food prep element? Is there kitchen facilities in the co-work space big enough for that?
Yeah, it was. If you want to pop to that image, Dean, there is a catering kitchen.
Yeah, if you'll go, Russ, or I can pull it up.
Go ahead.
I'll go ahead and share. Let's see. We do have a catering kitchen once I get there with my plans. Here we are. So it'll have some built-in equipment, but also kind of just general space for a caterer to kind of bring in their own equipment. So we do have this staging kitchen right here with about 810 square feet to support the large banquets. The kitchen space in the co-working, I think, would be more to kind of just for folks in there using the co-working space, would have kind of maybe a microwave to heat something up, coffee machines, things like that. But that wouldn't really be supporting any big events. All of that would be coming out of the staging kitchen here.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else with questions for the mayor and team? Hearing none.
I hope you're happy with what you're seeing. I know our city council's been quite pleased with the process.
Yes. Excellent. Well, thank you, Mayor and Dean and Leah, for joining us this evening and giving us this progress and where we're at.
Absolutely. Thank you for your time tonight.
Thanks, everyone.
Moving along on our agenda, we are to item 6, financial reports. A, B, and C all were part of the packet this evening. Russ, did you have anything you wanted to high level?
What I'd like to do is I'd like to bring in Ms. Beach, if she is here, to speak to our financials for August and September, since we didn't have financials at our last board meeting for August. If you'll remember, I had created a spreadsheet showing our revenue and our expenditures and our balances. But Ms. Beach should be here where she can speak to the financials for August and September. So Ms. Beach, I'll turn it over to you.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Russ. Yes, we have the summary and the detailed financials for both August and September. You see August that is up there right now. It's a very basic high level view of everything. Everything is in line with what we have projected for the year. There aren't any surprises in August. If you want to go ahead and go forward to that's the position. This is more of a detailed a financial position if you want to see the individual line items. The last one shows you more by the categories. And as a reminder, there are three main funds that we operate out of, and the 968 is our operating fund. We take money from the 977, move it into the operating fund each month, and that's how we fund our operations for our running expenses and our payroll and all of those other expenses. And it's about $30,000 a month that we bring over unless there's something special. Russ takes care of all of that. And this is, like I said, this is a summary. It gives you a snapshot. This is our assets, liabilities, and equities. If you want to go forward to the detailed, this shows you where those monies are. It shows the breakdown in each column of the funds that are like the Perk Fund and the Heritage Park and the Circuit of the Northwest and the South Kitsap CEC. All the different plans and programs are in the 977. The 968 is our operating, and the 286 is our investment funds. If you want to go ahead and go forward there, that's this is the end of the last report. If you want to go ahead and keep going down, that'd be great. All right, this is the snapshot of our income and expenses. And just keep in mind that a lot of the movement for the income, we have our income that comes in that Russ will talk about a little bit more from the sales tax and from other things and from the investment properties. But all of the income going into 968 is simply a transfer from the 977. And 286, 977 sends it over to 286 as well for meeting our investment and long-term liability. So this is just income and expenses with the net income for the month of August. If you want to go ahead and go down, this is in more detail if you want to dig into the nitty-gritty on it. The things that you'll be looking at for the 2023 budget have to do with the 968, and you can see the details of where we are each for the year to date on each of these in the 968 column. If you want to go ahead and go forward. And that's just the end of the other one. This one, yeah, go ahead and go down. Let's go on to September. Okay, so here we have the month of September for our assets and liabilities and our equity that transfers between. Go ahead and go forward. There's not a lot of movement on these other than in the 968 during this last couple months. This is the the detail of the assets and liabilities by fund, and you can see it gets broken down. We're tracking everything for each of the funds that we're working on, all of the capital projects and all of the building funds, as well as everything having to do with our operating funds. You'll notice here on this one that towards the bottom of the page, you'll see the Kitsap Bank credit card. This is the credit card that was approved by the board in a prior meeting. We're now using that to be able to meet some of our obligations. The process for getting funds approved and sent out through the county sometimes are things were getting paid late because of the timing of when things were sent and when they fell into the system. The credit card allows us to pay things on time, and it also allows for Russ to not have to pay for things out of his own funds that are KPFD expenses, just so that it can be paid sooner and then be reimbursed, or if it's an automatic payment so that we can get a better pricing. So the credit card is being utilized for that, and then that payment is sent through to the county for payment to the credit card itself. We're tracking all of that data and information internally. Go ahead and go forward. And that's just the end of the September. Just look at the profit and loss statement for September. One thing to note that as we're looking at the year to date, as of September, 75% of the year is passed. And if we look at these numbers next to our 2022 budget, we're at 72% of our budget. So we're right on track, which is what we have estimated through the time of doing the 30,000 approximately every month. And we've stuck to that very well for the expenses, even with the moving expenses and the different changes that we've had to do for moving our location out to the Paulsbo site. you go ahead and go forward. And this is the detail, just like with the other. And I'll let you go ahead and go forward. And I think that all of this information was sent out ahead of time. Any questions that people have on that, feel free to contact us. And Russ, I think that you have the next slide is something that you'll be discussing.
I do. Thank you, Ms. Beach. Really appreciate her every month and what she's able to put together for our reports. The other thing I'll say too is that us being able to stay on target with the budget that was adopted at the beginning of the year, we've been able to find ways to be able to save money as well. Like we now pay less rent, and we don't have as much expense in advertising as what originally budgeted for. So for some of those that were over budget, that we didn't quite budget enough for in 2022, we've saved for it on the other side of it. So I do believe that in 2023, we'll have a more balanced budget where we're able to stay line item to line item on what we budgeted. So as I get together with the budget committee over the course of this next month, then I think that we'll have a clear picture to be able to present to you all for adoption in the December board meeting. So thanks again, Ms. Beach. The sales tax rebate revenue for the month of September, we collected another 200,000 plus in sales tax rebates. That is the first time in our history that we have received 2 straight months of 200,000, and we've actually received 3 months in the total year of over $200,000. So in September, we were 7.2% more than we were this time last year. Our average for the year is $188,000 per month. That's $10,000 more than where we were at this time last year. Our operating expenses for September were $20,871. After taking out the debt service, you can see that we were at $113,109.65 as a net gain. We were up 6.7% from September 2021. So we continue to do well in the sales tax. The last sheet for the financials. It's not. Okay, here we go. Let me see if I can zoom in here a little bit. Again, we look at this each month. In particular, when you approve the consent agenda, we approved 2 different expenditures. We approved for the Port Orchard Community Event Center invoice of $50,387, which was related to Task 4. And then for the Port of Bremerton Circular Northwest, the last invoice was submitted for $191,912.45. That zeroes out the amounts of funds that were available for the original $1.439 million that was committed in accordance with the ILA. So what I will do tomorrow is I will let the Port of Bremerton know that the board has approved the $191,912.45 for reimbursement back to the port, and they can make their expenditure to the Circular Northwest and the Joel Cohen Group. Okay. So for October, we will end up out of 977 spending $50,386. Just as a reminder, in February of next year is when we will send another $144,000 to the Port of Bremerton. Our available cash at the beginning of this month was $432,569. After the expenditure of $50,387, our cash balance will be $382,183.65. And remember, that's just the cash fund of 977. That's not the total amount of funds available. Any questions on the rebate summary or on our project financials?
Any question on any of the financials?
And let me ask real quick, because I believe I have Mr. Thompson on the line with Bear Creek or Barker Creek Consulting. Mr. Thompson, did you have anything else to add with regard to the tracking?
He needs promoted.
Just 1 second. Let me make sure I have him as a panelist. Okay, Mr. Thompson and Ms. Rogers, I had taken you to panelists, so please speak if you're able to.
There we go. Yeah, that that was helpful. I was actually tried to raise my hand during the presentation last time. I had some questions about the project, but that's no big deal. I can go direct with the mayor and with Rice Fergus Miller on those questions. As far as the financials go, I think, Russ, you hit it right on the head. I think, we've finished with the Circus Northwest budget at this point in time. And, I think we asked for the final deliverable, which we didn't have in our possession. So I'd like to still see that final deliverable, as they should be able to deliver that to us if they're at 100% design. I don't have anything other comments on the other invoice that we reviewed.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Yeah, and what Mr. Thompson is referring to is that I'll be asking the port to get the 100% completion plan. The ones that I currently have are at 60%. So I'll be asking the port to get the 100% plan, so we have that in our possession.
Thank you. Any additional questions around any of the financials? Moving on to agenda item number 7, ongoing business and the rebranding efforts and logo ideas for the KPFD. Director Shipman.
All right. This is the last thing, and maybe one of the most exciting things. We have Miss Kelly Kitchell-Cooper that's with us. Miss Cooper has owned a Rockfish Group in the past. She's a marketing specialist. She is phenomenal at everything that she does. And we first got to know her when she was the marketing director for Visit Kitsap Peninsula. She is now doing some freelance on her own. And so I reached out to her to ask her to help us with the rebranding efforts and some new logo ideas. So her and I have been going over this the past few weeks, and we feel like we have something to show to the board for consideration. Also note that as we talk about this, we're open to board's suggestions. We don't have to approve anything tonight. We can go back to the drawing board. We can do just about anything the board would like to see us do, but at least we want to be able to provide you something to take a look at for our efforts for the last 2 months. So Ms. Kitchell, are you, can you still hear us, and are you able to participate?
I am. I'm able to
Fantastic.
participate.
All right. I'm going to turn it over to you.
So Russ and I did some pre-development with regards to what the community at large, when they hear Kitsap Public Facilities District, who you are and what you do seems to be lost in the messaging. And Russ, wouldn't you agree? I think that about 95 plus individuals, when polled and asked what the facilities district does, they believe that you're a utility company, like water, sewer, power. So how do we create brand assets and branding that encompass what the facilities district does, what the legacy the facilities district leaves behind, and what an asset it is to our community? So the old logo didn't feel like, at least to me and to Russ and others, it didn't feel like it was an accompaniment of the spirit and purpose and mission of the facilities district. So here we go.
So we talked about some type of an icon, if you will, that shows motion or that portrays motion or work. And so that was the idea of a cog came about. Now, I know that first reaction may be, boy, that looks like the Rotary logo. And that was one of the first things that we thought about as well. So we tried to deviate from something like a Rotary logo. We tried to be, we thought about color. We thought, put an awful lot of thought into color and how you represent that and what is a good way to be able to kind of enhance what it is that we're talking about. You can see that we put within the cog 4 different icons: bicycle, soccer ball, the mountains, water, and a building. We felt like all 4 of those icons represent facilities that Kitsap Public Facilities District helps to fund and provide. We also felt it was extremely important that we come up with some type of a tagline, which is something that the KPFD has never had in the past. So what came to mind was 2 different things: building communities, enhancing lives, or building communities, enriching lives. Either one we think kind of captures what the KPFD is all about. So this next slide is just different variations of what you see in those first 2 iterations. So I'm going to turn it back over to Ms. Kitchell. You'll note that I put a number 1 on each one of these. So if you want to speak to any one of those, or say, I really like, you can just indicate which number it is, and then we'll know which one to go directly to. So Ms. Kitchell, back over to you.
Additionally, one of the other things that we did is we explored some other like type communities to Kitsap and how they marketed or how they branded their facilities district, coming up with most of them have gone the way of calling themselves community districts versus facilities districts. So rather than undertaking a giant kind of brand switch, we thought by creating a tagline that lends itself to having the message of community versus just facility. So facility and utility seem to kind of get the same acknowledgement in terms of what it is that you do, which again is incorrect. You're not a utility district. So I would ask that you look at these and give us as much feedback as possible. What we did like about the old logo is that it had a bit of motion, which is the cog was developed as kind of a motion forward. It was strong. It kind of invoked all of those types of feelings. And we moved some of the icons around, such as we put the bicycle at the top. So the bicycle would be kind of rotating around that cog and then hook back up with the soccer ball. We looked at fields and things like that, but that branding or messaging didn't really evoke much in terms of we were like, who's going to know this is a field? So we went with a soccer ball.
The other thing to note too is that you'll see that the cog design itself is a little bit different. The one had more kind of a spoke. The other one doesn't make that so predominant. I'm talking about number 1 look as opposed to say number 5 look. So you can see that there's a slight difference there. So now we open it up for discussion. We open it up for questions and comments. Again, this is a starting point for us. It's the first time that we've had an opportunity to be able to talk to the board about it. So we're now with the board's perspective, and what do we need to continue to do moving forward? Are we headed in the right direction? Do we need to go back to the drawing board? Now's the time to let us know.
Thank you. I'm just going to throw my 2 cents in there. I like the cog in 1 through 4 better. It looks more coggy than 5 through 8. That looks more like the little sticker you get on a certificate that's pointing out. So Phil, I saw your hand up first. I will recognize Phil.
Thank you. So a couple comments, positives first start. I do like the concept of the tagline, building communities. I don't know that I really have an opinion about whether enhancing lives or enriching lives. I kind of like them both. I like the concept of the soccer ball and the bike and the mountains and the building because it kind of does encapsulate what we do. I don't know that I'm a big fan of the cog concept. I think that's kind of still promoting it in this kind of the eye of a utility is kind of how I'm getting. And I do agree. I was just, as you were talking, kind of Googling the Rotary thing. And it just, especially with the blue and gold colors or even yellow color or orange, that's really Rotary. Maybe we'll get less of a confusing similarity if we change the colors. I'm also not a fan of the blue and orange to begin with. I think there's a lot of, I don't know, it seems to be trending now. I mean, it's also a Rotary's color. I would maybe see if we can maybe pick a different color that would work rather than orange and blue, especially if we're going to stick with the cog thing, because it is too similar to Rotary. I don't know. The cog thing, it just strikes me too much like we're back to a utilities district and kind of gears and things moving. So that's just my comment, but I like the concept of the different designs on it, as well as the logo.
Thank you, Director Havers. Aaron.
I too, with the cogs and the Rotary, I feel that's the first thing I think of when I see it. So I like the rounded off edges, that maybe even rounded a little bit more. I love the bike building, mountains. We're missing water though. And as a almost island that is known as a.
So underneath the mountains, there is the lines underneath the mountains are water, but maybe that isn't distinctive enough.
Yeah, probably not. I just think that was topographic. And it's hard to get that much stuff on a logo. Most of these logos are going to be, this big on a piece of paper. So going to too much detail is probably going to be lost on it. I personally like bright colors, and to get away from the idea of a county-owned utility or whatnot. So I'd love to see slightly more rounded design. Maybe I don't like the cog, the 1 through 4 with their, just because it is really rotary to me. But I too would like to see it in some different colors, maybe in something that pumps a little bit and looks progressive.
Director Leedham. Anyone else on the?
What's the difference between 1 and 3?
Let's see. Nothing.
Nothing. It was a trick. There's a prize. You won. Nicely done.
Want you to know I was still awake here.
I appreciate it. I don't know what the prize is yet, but it'll be good. Tell me, I'd like some more feedback on the tagline, because I think that that's really, really important in terms of once we develop this logo, we get the color story and the branding right. When you're out in the community, I want this logo and this tagline to be able to kind of create your talking points, right? Like who you are and what you're doing. So I want to make sure that both the tagline and the logo convey the messaging that you want to get out there.
Yeah, I'm going to just give my 2 cents. I prefer enriching over enhancing. Whether we're making something richer, we're making our communities richer with the spaces that we create, or to improve the state of something, right? Like enriching, enhance just doesn't have the same ring for me personally, but I didn't catch the trick on the cog either. So that's my 2 cents. Aaron, you were first hand up this time.
I really like the building communities. I think that's dead on right. And I can be talked either way on the enhancing and enriching.
Thank you. Director Havers?
So I was thinking, what about, I like building communities, but almost more alliteration. What about enhancing communities, enriching lives? Just, I know it gets away from building communities and where we are funding building projects, but the underlying thing, just from a trademark branding, kind of people remembering it, they may think of it more from that standpoint. Just throwing it out there. I'm as I said, I'm happy with either one, but that's also something to throw out.
Anyone else about building communities? I felt the building communities was a motion type word, like not an emotion type word, but a motion type word. Because we want to make sure that, you know, people understand that the facilities district is established to be, right, you're forward thinking. What kind of legacy are you going to leave in our community? And what does that look like? So there's a lot of thought involved in terms of the projects that you're working on and what that means to both the residents and visitors when they come to Kitsap County.
A couple of comments that we received in the chats were that liked 7 and 8 the best, felt that 1 through 5 looked more like the rotary cog. And then other comments were, would it be possible to change the colors so they reflected what our current colors are, which is the blue, a different blue, and the green color to that. And then
I'd like to add my 2 cents on that one, Russ, while we're still on it. I don't like our current colors. I feel like it's overdone and it's done. Today.
I think that was our idea when we thought about, so if we're going to do something new and fresh with a new logo, then we ought to do it with new and fresh colors as well. So I think that's the reason why we didn't show that as an option. And then the last comment was that either tagline worked. So those are the comments we received in the chat from the rest of our panelists. So I think what I'm hearing is that take a look at something else other than a cog, because we don't want to replicate or be confused with rotary. Understand that. Consider some other color choices as well. It sounds though, I think what I'm getting is that everybody likes the icon, and what we chose for icons, maybe make a modification to the mountain and the water scene. And that also that everybody really likes the idea of a tagline to go along with it. The one other thing I'll point out too is that this would be the encompass of our entire logo. So what that means is that we do not have to put alongside here Kitsap Public Facilities District. And I was very, one of the things I told Ms. Kitchell was that I wanted to make sure that it shows up, that the name itself shows up somewhere within the icon. So it's not like the icon and then Kitsap Public Facilities District and then building communities enhancing.
We're done. So I can tell.
So any other comments? And Ms. Kitchell, did you have anything else that you wanted to add that you picked up on what was said?
No, the feedback has been great. In terms of color, I'm with John 100%. The Seahawks color is out for sure. The nice thing about creating a really strong brand and logo is that although colors initially are really difficult, right? They're emotional. So it's difficult to kind of come up with a color palette that pleases everyone. But the plus with that is that we can switch it out too. So as colors become trendy and we need to enhance things moving forward, swapping out colors probably, well, hopefully is the only thing that you'll have to do for many years to come. So if anyone, if not now, but later, if anyone has some feedback from Russ and I as to what do you want to see a dark gray with orange? What do you see as being colors that represent your brand?
Oh, we're still talking about colors of the library. Or whatever this is. You're gonna want to learn one of these days when you retire. I'd love to.
Somebody's not muted.
Hey, Director Draper, could you mute your mic, please?
So to follow up what I was saying is color is always a tough choice. I've been through this. I think that's probably the last piece of my puzzle for that. But I also might just, as I'm sitting here thinking, it's tough for me on a tagline to just take this and go, right? I'm going to have to play with it for some bit and stew on it to see if there's something I can come up with myself that, plays off that, right?
Perfect.
It's a jumping off point, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
I guess what I would ask is that for each one of the directors, please send me your feedback. and you're not hurting anybody's feelings here. This is a jumping off point for us. We're just getting started. I think that I would say I think we're pretty excited about the opportunity of doing this. This is something that we talked about even during my interview process when I was interviewing for this position, is to give us something that people recognize who we are, and something to be able to use moving forward. You as a board member, myself as the executive director, say this is who we are, and this brand kind of says it all. So I think we've made great strides so far. So please provide me your feedback. I will share that with Ms. Kitchell, and we will continue to work on it. In December, I think what we can do is provide you even more alternative things to logos to be able to take a look at and get your feedback on. Different color schemes, different something else besides a gear.
Hey, Russ, I think it'd be great for the people that are not on the call right now, for the other three directors, for you to request. Am I vague here? I gotta fix this.
Yeah,
send it to the other three guys too, and say, hey, take a look at this. We want your feedback. So
I will.
Thank you.
Okay. And that's all we had. We weren't looking for approval. We were looking for feedback tonight.
And it's great feedback. Thank you.
Yes, thank you both for the hard work that you've already put into it, and we look forward to building upon them. Anybody else have any ongoing business or good of the order?
Just one quick comment, just to stick in the noodle. I haven't talked to anyone officially. I'm seeing a lot of traction about a public hospital district, kind of, popping up in the news. People starting to ask questions if someone should start that. So I wouldn't be surprised if at some point, if word gets out about our group, that I don't know, someone approaches us about could we help fund it or something. So it just throwing it out there. People are asking questions about that, and obviously we have our procedures and all in place, but that may be something we get hit up on.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Havers. I have two things real quick. Director Havers and I have been invited to the Central Kitsap School District Community Forum, which will be held on Wednesday. It'll be the third forum. It will be at their Silverdale Center there at Central Kitsap High School from noon to 2. If anybody else would like to join us, you're welcome to. But Director Havers and I will be there to represent the Public Facilities District, and we'll report out at that at our next meeting, or I will send off a note to all the board members letting you know what was discussed there and how it may have pertained to the Public Facilities District. The other thing too is that our legal counsel, Mr. Lawler, had let me know that we have a conflict of interest policy in place that I should have gotten out to you all at the beginning of the year. It basically just says, and it's one that I have to sign as well, but it basically says, if you have any conflict of interest, you will let the board know, you'll let myself know, and you can recuse yourself from any type of issue or item that we're talking about. So I will be sending that out to you all for your signature. I will fill it out, and then it will require your signature on it. But I'll get that out to you as well. And then, Mr. Lawler, if you're still with us, is there anything else you wanted to add to the conflict of interest policy?
All I will add is that it's based on one of the RCWs, one of the statutes. And so there is a definition in our policy that tracks the state law. So I say that because there's many different types of conflict of interest that can arise, but the state has defined for governmental purposes what a conflict is. So look at the policy that Russ will send you before you fill out the form.
Yeah. And I apologize that it took me, I apologize that it was Mr. Lawler to point that out to me, but now that I know about it, I'll get it out to you as soon as possible.
Thank you, Russ. Anything else?
That's all I have.
I have one additional question before our adjournment. I see at the bottom of this agenda, our next meeting is noted a time change.
Yeah, I'm glad you pointed that out. Yes, thank you. The Bainbridge Island City Hall cannot accommodate a 5:30 start for us because they have a meeting in there from 4:30 to 6. So they've asked if we could move the meeting to 6:30. So that would be a 6:30 to 8 o'clock meeting at the Bainbridge Island City Hall.
Thank you. Just wanted to make sure everybody took note of that.
Right, and yeah, Director Havers had asked me about that earlier today as well.
Yeah, so our next meeting is December the 12th at 6:30. So until then, we will bid you adieu. We will call this meeting of the Kitsap Public Facilities District adjourned.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Take care.
Recording stopped.
Thank you.